14th. I'd like to call the City of Twinsburg Public Works Committee to order. Shannon Cole.
Mr. Scafidi?
Here.
Mr. Post?
Here.
Mr. Bellin?
Here.
Great. Also in attendance, we have Mrs. Walker, Mr. Fury, and Anna, and our engineer, and Sarah. Sarah. And everybody's here. See that? The gang's all here. Okay, so let's get started with no honors presentations. Jason, you're being Jason's here too. I did some. First of all, the RFQs. It's all you tonight.
It is all me tonight, and I have a PowerPoint so we can do this succinctly. Okay, so RFQ, what we're looking at doing is going out for 3 different projects for RFQs. And basically, I want to make sure before I advertise that council is in agreement that we should move forward with these. So RFQs are based on a qualification-based selection per Ohio Revised Code. If the amount that we're going to contract for with an engineer and architect is going to be over $50,000, we should enter into a contract associated with qualification-based selection. So you go out for RFQs, you get the qualification packages, you rate those, you have a rating system already spelled out how you're going to do that whenever you put that out there. And then you choose the most qualified that you think of those and negotiate the contract, and that's when you can get into pricings and hire associated with that. So the 3 projects, we'll go through them one by one. The first project that we're looking at is traffic engineering. You've gotten some requests for traffic boxes or cabinets, things like that. But our traffic signals, and I know I've mentioned this in the past, are getting aging. We have about 36 locations with signals. 15 locations were put in 1985, which means those poles are 32 years old. Poles, depending on who you look at, what as far as rating for what would be useful life for replacement, ends anywhere from 25 to 30, maybe 40 years. In Ohio, I think ODOT uses 30 years or 35, and for Ohio Public Works applications, when I make an application for that, I get full points at 25 years of service life because they know they basically are aging. What happens in a mast arm, it bounces a lot with the wind. It causes stress on those, like anything else, eventually wears out. As well as it's got all the electrical components through the pole to run the signals and things like that. We're also running with that ARIES system, Econolite software, which I replaced that, upgraded that once when I've been here, and I've been here 20 years, so it's been 10 to 12 years. That system now is no longer being serviced. It's an obsolete system. Econolite now has a Centrax program that they now run, and it basically optimizes signal timing by automatically, as opposed to some of the ways we have right now programmed in different series that it changes to based on what it's picking up. This is a little bit more robust in that it can actually change a little bit more quickly based on new programming and availability. So what I've been up to is I'm involved with AMATS, and that's our regional transportation agency that basically we're able to get some funding through. They did a couple years ago a transportation outlook update, which is their long-range plan, which is how you get grant funding if you're in there. And I did put our citywide system update for about $3.6 million as a placeholder in there. It does not mean we're funded, but it means we're eligible for funding. Their funding cycle is usually odd years, so 2023 will be a year, so we would have to kind of know what we're going after to put an application in. I have designed 2 signals in my life, and I deal with some of the signal stuff here, but I'm not a signal expert, so that's why I need a traffic engineer to move forward with that program. And there is an investment that we're going to put in one way or the other, and I just don't want to piecemeal it so we can get it all done appropriately with grant money. And this would be grant money. 80-20 is typically the match.
So you're asking for 3.6?
Well, eventually I will. Right now, I'm not doing anything. What I'm asking at this point is we're going to go out looking for an RFQ to hire that traffic engineer. I have money in my professional services budget to get started with that. And that's what we want to start that process so that we're ready. They can prepare the application with the technical backup that would be required for that application.
So you are thinking that the project ultimately after that study would come in at roughly $3.6 million.
Yeah, and that was an estimate.
Not going to hold you to it.
Right, that was an estimate I did 2 years ago. At the
Okay.
inflationary rates now, I haven't even, until they run all that.
And then the idea or the hope would be that we would get 80% of that through grants.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So that's the first one that we've got.
Bill, or Sam.
So Amy, if we took on this project, is this something that we do in phases? Like, or it depends on the grant money or?
Yeah, it looks at the grant money. We may not get all 36 signals. As I broke down in the previous slide, we have at least 15 locations and actually another 13. So we've got about 20 of the 36 locations. And most of those are on 9182 that kind of need to be looked at first. We do have some newer signals that may not fall into that program, but we definitely would be looking at the corridors of it, where most of our signals may be a little bit on Ravenna Road. I'd have to look at the age of that.
Controlling that you want to have it.
We definitely have to look at new control, new programming, that once the Aries fails and we don't have any backup for it, that's going to be a problem. So we would end up having to put all of it into our systems. But how we would, put, at this point, until we start looking at it in a larger scale with somebody actually looking at the design, whether we do 15 signals, whether we do 20 signals, whether we do all 36 in a complete citywide program, that would be a question.
You might have said this already, but does the cost include the controls, the boxes?
It would, yeah, that would include the whole signal upgrade. And that's why I'm looking at it and a lot of discussion going on. I want to make sure we're trying to do the best we can and get the most money we can. And it's something that is needed. We have kind of put it off. We didn't go after it 2 years ago because we were pretty much shut down. And I probably would have started looking at it a couple years ago, which I did with AMATS, but not with bringing it forward here. So that's the first project. The next project is for wastewater for Chris and Nathan. We used to contract with Finkbeiner, Pettit, and Strauss years ago, who did a lot of the engineering work associated with the wastewater treatment plant as far as rate surveys, treatment plant operational issues, cost study, equipment replacement, grant assistance, those types of things. The last project that they did, I think, was the roughing towers. And then the engineers changed out of there. Chris was not as comfortable with them, and we pretty much had the plant running where we needed to go. He's at a place now. I know that both Chris and Sarah have brought through in finance a list of things that are going to be coming up as far as operational needs in the multi-million-dollar numbers. So what he's looking at is putting an RFQ out for a engineering firm to actually handle and do that in a concise package, as opposed to, like I said, when you have over $50,000 going out for somebody each time he needs through here to try and get him through that plant upgrades and needs that he projects based on the aging of that plant. So that's the second one we want to go out with, and that would be, we're proposing a 3-year renewable contract, similar to what he had before. If he's comfortable with the company to keep moving forward, he just bring it to council. I think we used to do that with Finkbeiner, Pettit, Strauss, come every year with an upgrade to the contract based on current fees in there.
So is there 2 RFQs then that you're suggesting going out for?
One for the signals.
Yep.
And this one for wastewater, and there'll be a third one, which I'm gonna.
Okay, but
Yeah.
but it's one though for wastewater, which would encompass
Everything.
not only the 3-year service contract, but also
Any projects.
consolidating the capital projects.
Right,
Okay.
and that's kind of what the service contract would do, to look at what the needs are,
Okay.
that type of stuff. Look at grant opportunities, look at a number of different things over there. And then the final one is the service department garage, which I know we've been talking about for a long period of time, was to start that. That would be a phased project. What we'd be looking at is going out for quals there, but we wouldn't want to actually go into contract and hire until next year's budget in 2023, do phase one, which would be the preliminary design, get it through planning commission, make sure everybody's on board with what's going to be designed. 2024, finish those plans out, get them ready to bid, and then possibly construct in 2025. If that's not kind of the roadmap we're leaning towards there, that's kind of why we're asking at this point, do we want to start the process for RFQs and get that moving along, because it is a process to get to a point of when you're ready to construction for doing that. So that was the third one I wanted to put out, and the reason why I want to put them all out together as well is I can advertise just a short ad in the paper and post all the extraneous material on my website under my bid thing, and so I just have to put a couple more words for one more instead of paying $500 for an ad. So does everybody, I guess that's, are we, little discussion there, are we good?
Sarah, what do you think about
Make her walk up.
that? I know. We could have brought you a mic.
I mean, I think at this point, it's a good idea to go out for the RFQ for all 3 items and see what it is that we're looking at for each one. Because until we have that information, I can't tell you that in 2025, we're going to be ready to go for construction and inspection. I think we've got to do those first steps and put the money into that first look. See
Yeah, I
what
mean,
we're at.
we've been talking about all 3 of these things in some way, shape, or form for several years now. I would certainly support going out to RFQ for all 3 of them.
Yeah, and I think with the wastewater treatment plant, especially with the Reminderville flow coming on, I think we're in a good place with that wastewater treatment plant to start looking into those big, we
ticket
say
items.
upgrades, but it's really maintenance. The equipment out there is getting older. And then the traffic signals, we have the opportunity for 80/20. I think you have to get yourself together to be eligible for that.
Okay, thank you.
Now, moving on to the next topic, Metro Parks has come to staff with requests for wayfinding signs. Wayfinding signs are allowed by Ohio Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. We kind of reviewed it. We pared down the size of the signs. We pared down a few locations. I gave everybody kind of a map now of what they're proposing. Those are examples up there of kind of how it looks. Some at Metro Parks, and one will be for Liberty Park, one will be for recreation area, the nature area, and the Pondbrook area. And I think a lot of what they're seeing is a lot of their users end up going to the wrong location. They want to go to the nature center, on the map, or Google takes them to the other location. So what we removed was things that were on 91 and Post Road, and then they had something way out on 82 by Chamberlain. We thought that was a little far as far as doing that. So we're at a point where we feel comfortable saying, okay, you probably can install these because they meet all the code, all the requirements of the Uniform Traffic Control Device. But you can also oversign, and we just didn't want to make that decision without council being informed. If they're, wanting these signs to go up, we would, if we basically told Metro Parks, we would ask the law department to do an agreement as far as maintenance of those signs, because we do know that signs start to deteriorate and then they look shabby and then they're left by the entity that puts it in there. So we would look at some sort of maintenance agreement when we did that.
Yeah.
We pay for the signs, and do we install the signs, or we're just approving the signs that they're going to stick out there?
We're just approving the signs. They're going to put them up and install
We're
them.
paying into the Metro Park fund, so.
Yeah, this is a no cost to us. They're just looking for permission, a right-of-way permit to install the signs in the right-of-way. And that's pretty much an administrative thing, but like I said, sign clutter then becomes, why are all these signs going up? Is that what we want to do?
So do we know where their plans
Yeah,
are?
you have on your,
It's all this,
yeah, the second sheet is kind of the spreadsheet showing what the sign says, where the location is, but the map kind of points it out. I know it's kind of a little smaller map, but it kind of shows where they're looking and what they're intending on doing.
Yeah, these seem appropriate to me. I mean, I don't see any reason, it doesn't feel oversigned to me.
Okay.
and if we thought so afterwards, we can always.
Talk to them.
Talk
Yes,
to them.
yes, yes. And like I said, we did eliminate some on their go around. We also shrunk them down. They had really large signs. We shrunk them down a little bit in size.
Your actual
So.
size right here.
Yeah.
We good? Good, good.
Yeah, I have a question. There's one, 82 and 480, and you have 12 by 72. What,
82 and 480, if it says ramp, we would not be approving any of the ramp signs. It also had ODOT approval. If you look on the second sheet behind you, anything on the exit ramps would be an ODOT approval. And because they're on the freeway, the size would have to be approved by, be appropriate for a freeway and size appropriate for ODOT. So we can't, all we're looking at is a right-of-way permit on the city right-of-ways.
oh, okay, thank you.
I missed that explanation. Okay. So just wanted to bring you up to date on what we already have money for, because we talked about going after money for some other things and what we're looking at money going after. So for AMATs, we're right now working on Ravenna Road, which we know. Next year we have Cannon Road. That's the section that is federally classified from 82 up to Liberty Road. And then we did get the money for Highland Road in a future year, and it could be in any year between 2025 and 2028. We got the money for Glenwood on the west side of 91, and we're working on the Ravenna Shepherd Road intersection on the environmental document right now. What I'm looking for in 2023, as we talked about with traffic signals, and I'll probably also apply for a resurfacing project that scores well with their funding. I'm hoping it will be the east side of Glenwood would be the next one in line, but again, they rank everything with their pavement condition ratings, and when they flow that out to me, then I can determine, and when they come out with those, we'll have the discussion at that time. Next thing we have is Ohio Public Works funding. Dorridge will be moving forward this fall, as discussed previously. We're currently out on White Oak and Birchwood. We'll start removing pavement here real soon. And then we applied last year for Ravenna Road Sanitary and the Phase 2 storm sewer lining, and those two did get funding, and we are expecting the agreements to come in July 1st. And we did talk about, I can't remember who I talked to about now. Phase 2, the storm lining, the golf pond to Glenwood, and I believe I brought it to council. We added it to the bid list. We'll be looking at moving it to the budget here, and that's because it's on the golf course, needing to move that ahead. What I'm looking for is applications. They're due July 22nd, so I'll be coming next week with legislation. Wanted to make sure that everybody was in agreement, so I'd continue working on those applications. Since we did get the Phase 2 lining of the storm sewer, Phase 3 would be completing that project in its entirety. It was a grant, and so I'd like to go after that Phase 3. And the Glenwood water line from the East Idlewood to the bridge. Now, the one thing that I want to talk about with the Glenwood water line is our scoring in the water fund and how we can, what we want to do financially with this. Glenwood's going to cost about $520,000, and it's just a water line project. So everything absorbs in the water fund, because even the restoration, because we're looking at resurfacing this in a few years with AMAT's money, we'll be doing a water line repair as far as any trench. And the only thing on the scoring, when you basically run the scoring here, they have a criteria for scoring, and the only place I really have play with points at this point, I can do plan readiness and get maximum points and all that, is in how we fund it. And a lot of times we'll do a 50-50 match for 0% interest and go with that full funding. But there are a couple options here. If you don't go over Ohio Public Works matching more than $250,000, I can get a few more points. However, the problem is how much money we have in the water fund. Now, Dorridge is not falling into the problem with that, because that's being funded by the American Recovery Funds. But it's a question of when we want to do this. I said we do have AMAT's funding for resurfacing, so I do have a few years to get this done. So we could look at a funding at 10% match, which takes my score down, which means I don't know where I'm going to score in the criteria for getting the project. It is a loan. There's less competition for loan funds. But you can see I could get it anywhere from 90 points to 102 points on an application that's out of 265. Nobody gets 265. And there's things I can't change associated with really getting the full points. But usually around, Oakwood was funded at 101 points. So usually it's around that 100 points, could be plus or minus depending on what comes in that year. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, how aggressively you want to go after. It would be funded in 2024, would have to be in the budget if we got it. Or, if we went for a different split in what our debt obligation would be. If anybody has any opinion or concerns, I can just sit down with Sarah and we could say, we're going to go 30%, we're going to go 50%, we're going to do whatever. If that's fine, that's how I'll prepare the application. I just wanted to run yet by you as far as how that's going to affect the application. Fine with Sarah?
I was Sarah.
Okay. And then active project update, more or less, this is letting you know what's going to be happening that could interfere with some traffic and different things. We do have the railroad closure scheduled on 91 the week of July 8th for doing the railroad repair there. The following week of July 15th, we're looking at Glenwood Drive. And I haven't had an update from the county engineer's office, but they will be doing a culvert replacement on Ravenna Road, which will close that in the township using Old Mill and 91 as the detour. The Cannon Road storm sewer, we have a pre-con next week and anticipated to start mid-July. Now we will coordinate so we don't close 91 at the same time we do Cannon. But in the contract, to speed the project up and for safety concerns, we do allow a closure as long as it's not, they don't start and work after the school starts, then they're not allowed to close the road because then it becomes a whole transportation nightmare. So they have elected to speed their work up by having the closure because they get less traffic that they've got to maintain around and slowing their work production down, and I will have that. But that will occur sometime mid-July, and hopefully with it being shut down for a shorter window, they can get through it in a quick, timely manner and get that back up. It's not a huge amount, as you can see by the addresses, but it is some work there. And we do have to get that project done so that we can resurface that section next year with amens, as I said earlier.
So when we do the storm sewer, what does that really mean? So we're putting
It's a-
underground pipe in?
Yes,
An area?
it's a-
Cover the ditches?
Well, no, there's already a enclosed storm sewer there. Well, it's enclosed ditches there. It's corrugated metal pipe. I think even Mr. Baldwin's in here discussing that at one point in time, the concern about those pipes and the whole, some of them are weakening.
I thought I saw ditches when I go up and down Cannon.
It's on, if I'm going up the hill, it's on the right-hand side where the sewer is enclosed. There are sections that are open, there are sections that are closed, but it's on, if you're going up the hill, it's on your right-hand side.
All the sections that are open now will be closed.
Nope, all we're doing is this is a replacement project.
Okay.
Because we didn't want to resurface the road and then have failing sewers. And we know that some are pretty well rusting out up there, so. Next slide is the road program. Dayflower area has been paved, Ethan's area has been milled. They'll probably be milling Abrams area next week as they're doing the concrete work right now, and they'll start paving out Ethan's hopefully this week. Fitness center, still don't have an exact date, it'll be July and August. We did the long lines only for road striping, and that's been completed last week. The tear out on Birchwood and White Oak, which will be a little inconvenience for those residents. They're already been inconvenienced by the construction out there. It's at those intersections, so we can reconstruct that pavement. We'll be starting the week of June 20th. Ravenna Road started, and they're pouring concrete today and tomorrow, so we'll be getting close to getting that milled and starting to do the base repairs and reconstruction out there. And we already talked about Cannon Road.
Amy, can I ask you a question about the Ethan's Drive? I saw that they put white line, I don't know if that's you.
Yeah, there's fabric repair. There's repairs where we're putting fabric. Those are where some of those areas where the joints are, or they've got some areas where we're reinforcing that before we go build up. So what you'll have, it retards the amount of reflective cracking that comes back up. You're always going to have cracking. Asphalt is going to crack. It's going to shrink and expand. It's flexible to some degree. but it retards some of that time of dilapidation, and the reason we want to do that is once you crack at the top, then the water starts to go down, and when the water gets down to the base, that's when you really start to cause expensive repairs to pavement. So they should be doing fabric first. We'll be going down here hopefully in the next few days.
Do you walk that white stripe that?
No, the city does. Patrick Jeffers and the crew that probably Greg Harwell and Joe Maniglia from my office kind of collaborate and walk that.
I guess I was just curious because, there's a lot of cracks there, obviously. And
Yeah, they look at, they'll actually shove a tool in to see how far that crack is and what those issues are with that area.
Gotcha. So, because it
Yeah.
looks like a lot of them that are not marked to fix.
Because they're minor, yeah.
Okay, because some of those look worse than some of the ones that
Yeah.
were marked. I'm like, I just wasn't sure if there's like I didn't think about they look how deep that goes too, though.
Yeah, they go, they physically walk it, in terms of making the selection.
Gotcha. Okay.
And base repairs and everything else can become very expensive, and it's a balancing act of the worst to get done associated with that. So good. And then upcoming bids, we talked about the stormwater line, the storm phase 2 lining. We will also be doing sanitary sewers on the laterals on Glenwood. This was a request of Public Works. Still need to add that one to the bid list. And again, let's see, you won't need the budget adjustments. So one other thing I did want to put in there that I didn't have in the slide is the Liberty Ball Fields. We originally, when we programmed that funding-wise at $25,000, we're kind of looking at a joint project with Service Department. We've got the design and the plans, the amount of time and the amount of material that would have to be trucked and moved there. It would be, based on everything else they've got going on, not possible, so we will have to probably go out to bid. We're refining that estimate, and because it will go out to bid, now you have all the cost of hiring a contractor and doing that, so the price will go up considerably. But working with Sarah on where the funding, and we'll be updating her on Monday with a cost estimate to do it, outsource it, and be looking at a budget adjustment for that.
Is that for maintenance of those fields?
No, that's for the pond. It's a water quality feature.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That we had discussed that even though they're ball fields and we had the ponds, we have to add, the EPA's requirement with the construction permits have changed throughout the process of when we started to where we're at now, so.
Amy, I got two quick things. I'm sorry, were you done?
Yep.
Okay. Back to the railroads.
Mm-hmm.
So the 91 one is going to be done the week of the 8th, and Glenwood is on the week of the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know how long those closures are going to be?
If you base it on last year, the railroad usually takes Monday through Thursday.
Okay.
Then we have to come in with our paver, and depending on the prep, and I know on one of the roads, I think the berm on 91 might be a little bit deteriorated a little bit more, so we might have to dig out a little bit more. And it could be close to the following Monday, depending on where we're at. We try and get it up on Saturday, but it depends on what we got going.
Is messed up, yes. Burned by the cement guys.
Mm-hmm. But we're really, again, we're going from the railroad to where the delineators are. We don't go any further than that. We go to the delineators and do the whole repair in there, and then we're going to put in the new delineators.
Okay. So it's a week.
Yeah, it's a week, and then if you got bad weather, week 10 days.
Okay. And then I know when we were talking about RFQs, I know we had talked about, there were several capital projects. I know that Fire Station 1, I know we were talking about. Is that one something that should go out to RFQ? Have you considered that?
I consider when I'm directed to do so.
Okay.
Chris has been interested in doing the number of things, asked me to prepare some RFQs associated with his work.
Okay.
I know they've done a study for the fire department in the past. I know they're retweaking what they're going to do associated with that. Again, not sure where you're at.
Okay, thank you.
I got one more question. Service garage. I know you're talking about preliminary design and all that. Was there a location decided yet?
That's
No.
part of the study.
I didn't think
That's
so.
part of phase 1. That's part of phase 1. Yeah, I always think you
Phase
could-
one's picking the place. I imagine you're gonna pick location.
There's There's a lot of open buildings right now, plus, what's going on with the schools and,
Right. That's
you
why-
could temporarily relocate and then maybe you could do it there, I don't know.
I don't know how you start doing community design if you don't know the location. So, just curious.
Well,
I heard
they
that.
want to size it all out based on their needs, which is the sign shop. They have the list in the RFQ. We kind of have what they're looking at. It's not overly aggressive in terms of, it's really their mechanics, their larger salt dome storage area, different things like that that they want to incorporate into it and the site. And as we go through the site selection or the sizing of the building and then the site selection, there'll be decisions that will have to be made. It's not,
I think, David, they were basically trying to determine how many square feet they need, what areas do they need, not necessarily designing a building, but saying, okay, we need 100,000 square feet, 50,000 square feet, whatever that may be, and then the space within it, and then kind of look at the sites to see
What will accommodate
what
the
will
size?
accommodate it.
That makes sense. Okay, I appreciate that.
that's all I had.
Anybody, any other questions?
No, sir.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
I'm the chair. All right, any unfinished new business or miscellaneous?
No, sir.
No.
Okay. I'll have some numbers, and next meeting will be on November 8th. And at this time, we will adjourn the meeting.